Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm broadcasting live September 13th, 2015. And today we are broadcasting, as usual, on our meditation page, meditation.sirimangalo.org, unless you're on our Android app. But today I have some interesting news to share. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Oops, wait, that's not the beginning. Oh no, stop. Yikes. Okay, not the smooth presentation I was hoping for. Here we are. So it opens up. This is an iPhone. Logged in. List, and these circles around them are the time left. So you see this guy's got some time left. This is how he's showing that there's time left. And here's the sliders. And it's actually got a timer. So he's like taken the app that I made and blown it out of the water. This is a professional app. And he doesn't show us these two tabs. I don't think there's anything in them yet. And this isn't actually sending the time to the server yet. But like that's pretty impressive.
That is very nice.
So, for those of you who are intent on sticking with the iOS, looks like we might have a solution. Anyway, so that's some good news, potentially. Tonight we have a quote from the Dhammapada, a really awesome story that has a great moral to it. It's also very long. Rob, will you read the first paragraph and I'll read the rest?
Sure. From the day the Lord said that in 4 months' time he would pass into final nirvana, thousands of people came to wait upon him. Those who had not yet attained the fruits of stream winning could not restrain their tears, and those who had not attained enlightenment felt a deep sorrow and walked around in small groups saying, "What will we do?" But one monk, named Dhammarama, kept separate from the other, and when asked what was the matter with him, he gave no reply. He had thought to himself, "The Lord has said that in 4 months' time he will attain final nirvana, and I am not still free from desire. Thus, while the Lord lives, I will strive to attain enlightenment." Accordingly, Dhammarama kept to himself, recollecting, pondering, and calling to mind the Lord's Dhamma. The monks went to the Tathagata and said, "Reverend Sir, Dhammarama has no affection for you. Since you announced the time of your final nirvana, he has nothing to do with us." The Lord had Dhammarama called to him and asked, "Is it true what they say, that you have nothing to do with the other monks?"
Yes, Reverend Sir, it is true. Why do you do this? I do it thinking thus: the Lord has said that in 4 months' time he will attain final nirvana, and I am still not free from desire. Thus, while the Lord lives, I will strive to attain enlightenment. Accordingly, I keep to myself, recollecting, pondering, and calling to mind the Lord's Dhamma. Excellent, monk, excellent, said the Lord. Then the Lord addressed the other monks, saying, "Every monk should show his affection for me in the way Dhammarama has done. They who honor me with garlands, perfume, and so on, honor me not. But they who practice the Dhamma in all its parts, they honor me in the best way." It's a classic story of misunderstanding and how difficult it is to really get, how most people have a hard time getting the truth behind the Buddha's teaching. So you have the monks who thought they were doing the right thing, wandering around moaning and lamenting at the Buddha's passing, spending all their time hanging out in groups and hanging out with the Buddha, trying to spend a lot of time with the Buddha before he passes away. And they think that this guy Dhammarama,
Dhammarama.
Dhammarama means one who loves the Dhamma. Was refusing to be involved with them, and so they criticized him. They even criticized him to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, Anyenapi mayi sineha vantena bhikkhuna nama dhammarama sadiseneva bhavitabang. One who loves me, one who has affection for me, right? They should be like Dhammarama, the one who loves the Dhamma. And again, he says the Dhamma in all its parts, which isn't really a translation. The word is Dhammanudhamma, which means practicing the Dhamma in order to realize the Dhamma. Dhammanudhamma. That's how the tradition explains the word. It could also be explained as practicing the Dhamma of Dhammas, of all teachings, practicing the best of all teachings, you could say. The Dhamma of the Dhamma of Dhammas. And then he gave this is a Dhammapada verse. This is a story behind the Dhammapada verse. And then he says, Dhammaramo Dhammarato Dhammang anuvichintayang Dhammang anusarang bhikkhu Sadhammana parihayati. One who loves the Dhamma, one who is delighted by the Dhamma, one who thinks often of the Dhamma, anuvinchayatam. Yes, to meditate, one who ponders the Dhamma, who recollects the Dhamma. The bhikkhu recollecting the Dhamma doesn't fall away from the Saddhamma. Saddhamma na parihayati. Doesn't fall away from the true Dhamma. That's Dhammapada verse 364. So this is a part of this bigger teaching of the limits of ceremony and ritual and social involvement, engagement, the limits of engagement in terms of practicing the Buddha's teaching, and how important it is, or where the importance lies, how the importance lies in the practice of the Dhamma, the focusing on the teachings. Often we recite the teachings or we revere the teachings, but our hearts aren't in the teachings. We're not focused on the teachings. We're not actually practicing the teachings. It's a very good story for reminding us and making clear what Buddhism is. Buddhism is about the teachings. It's not about the Buddha. When Ananda cried that the Buddha was passing away, he said something that seems rather cold, actually. He says, haven't I told you that all things that you hold dear will one day fade away? Or something along those lines. He has no, he gives no quarter to the affection that Ananda has for him. He takes himself as just like an inanimate object, a thing. This thing that you hold dear, Ananda, all the things that you hold dear, you one day have to part with. But the Dhamma is constant. The Dhamma is our refuge. Make the Dhamma your refuge. So the Buddha said, when you make the Dhamma your refuge, that's how you make yourself a refuge. Make a refuge of yourself. Attahiyata no nato. So that's the Dhamma for tonight. This nice story. Would there happen to be any questions?
There are. I have a multi-part question, Bhante. I heard you talk yesterday about how your mind isn't working well after 8 p.m. since you stop eating at noon. What is your stance on taking vitamins, and would you accept a gift of vitamins you could take after your last meal to keep your body well nourished?
I've looked at that in the past, and medicine, if you're not sick, medicine, if you're sick, you can take anytime, day or night, and can keep your entire life. But you can only take it when you're sick. So you have to already be sick in the sense of malnourished. No, yeah, I mean, with vitamins, it would be something like clearly suffering from malnourishment, which I'm not. But as food, otherwise, if one is not sick, it's considered food. Even salt is considered a food, for example. Any kind of mineral, that kind of thing, is all considered food. It can be considered either food or medicine. If it's mixed with food and if it's taken when you're not ill, then it's food. And so there it has to be offered and eaten between sunrise and noon. And at the moment of noon, it has to be forfeited. So it can't be kept. So there are, I know some monasteries where they offer these omega-3 oils or something, some kind of oil capsules to the monks. Maybe it's flaxseed oil or something, which is awesome. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm probably not getting the greatest nutrition, but you know, it becomes an obsession. It's not really the point. There's nothing wrong with being tired. There's nothing wrong with losing energy at 10 p.m. It's been a long day. Time to let the body wind down. I'm okay with that. It's really not going to kill me. Even a little bit of malnourishment compared to, I mean, it's a scale, really. Science talks about how you have to eat this, and, nutritionists tell you need this and that. Or what? You won't die. I mean, look at monkeys or even primitive people, primitive societies. I mean, we can argue back and forth, but I'm sure there are lots of people who live fine with less nutrition. There's vegetarian societies that certainly don't get all the nutrition that they should, according to nutritionists. And so as a result, yeah, they probably, like in Sri Lanka, a lot of people don't seem to have a lot of energy. They kind of laid back and hang out a lot. There's a lot of them are vegetarian, but it's a different culture. There's no concern about nutrition, not the way we have it. Anyway, I don't want to get into too much detail there, but I certainly don't want to become obsessed with this and have it be a thing where the monks in our monastery have to be given vitamins or something. But if someone wanted to give me a vitamin, I wouldn't refuse it, I don't think. It seems like there's a lot in those vitamins, though. Nowadays, vitamins are also expecting that you eat a lot of food as well. I don't know. I've taken them before, but I'm not really all that interested.
Sometimes when you take them on an empty stomach too, it can upset your stomach.
Mm.
They are strong. I had a question that someone had asked me to ask on their behalf, another person in Europe who can't be here. If a person is interested in having a local meditation group, a local community, there's no Theravada community in their area, and they go to a different tradition, a Mahayana tradition, but try to maintain the type of meditation that we practice here, he wanted to know your thoughts on that.
It's great, for sure. Let us know. Well, if our organization grows, we could start having a list of places. Here's a group practicing in our tradition. There's a group. We probably should have one with all sorts of Mahasi Sayadaw-based groups. We should have a directory of just Mahasi Sayadaw groups.
That's something we can ask our volunteer group if somebody would be willing to look into that and put a list like that together.
We can have, we used to have a wiki, but we can open up a subsite called wiki.sirimangalo.org and have all sorts of stuff like that on it.
Yeah, that would be good.
I've opened it before, but it was never really useful or used because our organization has never really grown. But that may be changing now.
Yeah, I think it would be good to have, because so many people, even people who follow you and are in our tradition, they immediately go to the one that's really easy to find, the SN Goenka, just because that information is so easy to find, and it's the convenient one.
Yeah, well, we should start looking at that. Let's put it on our agenda for next weekend. We don't have a meeting, but the next time we have a meeting.
2 weeks from today, will do. If one is well established in meditation and the Dhamma, how easy is it to ordain as a monk in a foreign country? Or what would you recommend as a preparation before doing this?
I mean, how easy is it to ordain in a foreign country is a very difficult question to answer. Ordination is an interesting thing. I mean, real ordination is sometimes very easy and sometimes very difficult. And a lot of that depends on your karma, because ordination is a very powerful thing and it's a very specific karma to be that in that way associated with the Buddha. For me, it was very difficult at first, 2 years of just like a total block. I was unable to. And then suddenly, the day of ordination, it was the absolute easiest thing in the world. It was like I was pushed to it, because I wasn't even intending to ordain. I was intending to ordain as a novice. And everything just conspired to make it happen. On the other hand, I ordained one of my students as an 8 precept nun. This isn't even a seminary, it's not even an official thing, but she was going to shave her head and put on white robes. And the amount of trouble that we had, I mean, you'd think it was just the Thai society, but that wasn't it at all. Or that wasn't all of it. In the beginning, that was it. They weren't going to, I couldn't ordain her because I didn't have, I could ordain her, but it wouldn't be recognized. We needed to get a card for her, because the whole thing was it was useful for getting a visa. They've got this thing where if women become a meiji, then they can get a visa. And so we went around trying to find a monk who would ordain her, but let her come and stay in my monastery, because she wanted to continue with our tradition, with our practice, or under my guidance, actually. There was no other place that was really seemed suitable. But all the other teachers, they wanted her to stay with them, or else no. And so we got a monk who would do it, and then we went to his place, and he had been just visited by someone who warned him not to do it, that he would get in trouble because of it. Finally, we got permission from the local authority monk to do it in his name. He would ordain her, but I would actually do the ceremony, and he would sign for it and do the whole card. So we went back to our monastery, got set up, had the robes. She offers the robes to me for inspection. I open the robes up, give them back to her, and say, okay, go put the robes on. And she goes with this other woman, female meditator, off, and they come back and they say, This isn't the I don't know how to put these robes on, and I think it's just two lower robes. And it turns out indeed it was two sarongs. There was no actual robe. Whoever had bought the robes for her had bought the wrong thing. I mean, it was just absolutely, if you watch the day progress, everything conspired against us up into that last moment where I said, look, there's an old bed sheet that isn't being used. Go take it out. It was like on the floor in the corner of the kuti. I said, go take that old bed sheet. It's white. Put it on. Take a bobby pin and to keep it on, and we're gonna do this. And it was just awesome though, like pushing pushing to make it happen until finally we just eked out this ordination. And I've seen that elsewhere with monks, how it just doesn't happen. So, meaning is I mean, just the meaning is that I can't answer that question. If you're intent on ordaining, there are so many specific variables, including which country are you talking about? Which monastery are you talking about? Every place is different. If you want to know about Thailand, for example, I could tell you about the situation in Thailand. They claim now that they don't want to ordain foreigners, but I don't know. I mean, some foreigners tend to ordain very easily in Thailand. So money seems to help. Sri Lanka, on the other hand, seems to be fairly easy, but there's the whole visa issue. It's very complicated, fairly complicated. Again, money helps, I think. Burma, there are ways, but you have to go there and meditate. Most places, they want you to meditate with them. They don't care if you've been meditating elsewhere. You have to start with them, and you have to go through months or years, well, months anyway, of meditation with them before they'll consider you.
Whatever happened with the eight precept nun? Did she stick with it?
She became a bhikkhuni eventually.
Oh, good for her.
I'm pretty sure she's still ordained. I can't imagine she ever disrobed.
Good for
Yeah,
her.
she's it's Palanyani. She's in some of the videos when we were in Sri Lanka.
Oh, okay. And you said you were never a novice? You went right from meditator to full bhikkhu?
Yeah, in Thailand they don't. If you're over 20, they ordain you right away as a bhikkhu. So the way it goes is you ordain as a novice, and then the same day you're ordained as a bhikkhu.
I don't understand how enlightened beings feel pain. You said in your video that an enlightened being can feel pain, but there is no attachment to it. So if I have severe chronic pain, it won't go away, it won't wear off.
Do you want the pain to go away? The answer is yes, you're not enlightened. That's the key. That's the only difference.
Can one enter the monastic life with IRS and/or student loan debt, or must that be at zero?
Technically, no. If you have a debt, you can't ordain.
Yeah, there are a few categories, aren't there, that disqualify you for ordaining?
Yep. Debt is one of them. If you do have debt and you do ordain, you're still a monk. It's just anyone who knowingly ordains you when you have a debt has broken a very minor rule, but has broken a rule. And it's kind of lying, because you're asked the question whether you have debt. Ananosi, are you in debt? Then you have to say Nati Bhante, no, Venerable Sir.
What are the other things that bar you from ordaining?
You have to be human. You have to be a man. This is for bhikkhu ordination. Manusosi, purisosi, buddhisosi, Manusosi, purisosi, Ananosi Nasirajapato, are you in the king's service? So if you're in the king's service, some people would try to escape it. Like if you're in the army, for example, if you're conscripted, you can't, because the kings would feel obligated to let them go. So it was a way of escaping conscription, which, I mean, it's nice to help those people, but it's not a very good reason to ordain as a monk. Nasirajapato Anunyatotsi Matapituhi. Do you have your parents' permission? Anunyatotsi Matapituhi. Paripunavisati Vasosi. Are you 20 years old? Paripunate Patajivrang. Do you have your robes fully complete? And do you not have one of the 5 diseases? There are these 5, or any debilitating disease really that's going to make you just a burden. I mean, it led people to ordain just to get, taken care of, which is a reason why we don't allow people who have debilitating diseases to ordain. I mean, there's other reasons. You just can't really perform very well, but the main one is it leads to problems where people want to ordain just to be taken care of. That was the reason.
I often see Buddhist monks here in Phnom Penh walking around
Phnom
barefoot.
Penh.
Say it again?
Phnom Penh.
Phnom Penh, walking around barefoot despite the garbage and grime of the streets. Is it part of the Buddhist rule to follow this practice? Seems like a sure way to pick up an infection.
It's pretty awesome that we've got someone from Phnom Penh.
It is.
I gotta tell my Cambodian friend, the Cambodian monks. Well, the feet are surprisingly resilient unless you get a deep cut. I got a fairly bad infection on the bottom of my foot, but it's glass that does it, which wasn't really around in the Buddhist time. Glass is a big problem, but you live with it. I had this funny. It was my own fault really, because along with glass has come antibiotics, and probably you should take some antibiotics if if they take the glass out, they'll bandage you up. But there are other ways. I got this infection in Sri Lanka, and I was so sure there was a piece of glass still in there. There wasn't. The doctors put some the thing to. Anyway, they stuck scissors up into my foot and poked around and couldn't find anything. Then they bandaged it up and gave me some antibiotics. Now they'd bandaged it up, so somehow I assumed that made it clean, but they'd stuck these scissors and they weren't concerned about cleanliness because they just give me the antibiotics and it kills whatever infection is going to come from it. So later on, I was doing my broadcast and I was feeling dizzy. And I think it was dizziness. And there was a doctor listening. She's in Canada. And she said dizziness is a sign of infection, or something was a sign of infection. I think it was dizziness. And I opened it up, and sure enough, my foot was swollen and it was grotesque. So I stopped going on alms round and I started eating garlic, raw garlic. One of the lay people offered me for the meal. I would mix it with, take bread and raw garlic. I ate about 3 bulbs, and a bulb is the big thing, 3 of them, and the infection went away. What was I talking? What was the point of all that?
The monks walking around barefoot. So is that tradition? Is it a rule, or did they probably just not have shoes?
No, it's a rule. In fact, the rule is we can't go into the village with shoes on. We're only allowed shoes in the wilderness. And I have a story for that as well. So I won't tell the whole story, but I got lost once and I was only wearing sandals, and some of the jungle trees have these spiky balls. Like their seeds have spikes and they're mean and vicious. So I was like walking through carpets of these things, up and down hills. The number of thorns, like these, and the thorns on these spiky balls break off when they go in. So the number of thorns that I had in my feet and hands and arms and the scratches I had, that story, I won't tell the whole story because it's too long, but man, that was an experience in dukkha. I've still got a huge scar from a stick that almost went through my hand. I mean, I was lost in the middle of the night. Eventually, I got found by a hunter. I heard gunshots fairly close by. A poacher, because they poach. They hunt illegally up in the hills, and I was so excited. I started walking towards him, and then I was thinking, wait a minute, this is really a good idea. He was spooked to see me. Like, what are you doing up here? I wasn't angry. I was like, what the heck? What are you doing up here? He gave me some water and he told me, go down to the bottom of the ravine and follow the ravine all the way back. I didn't have a flashlight. And there was a path through the ravine, but there were also thorns. And because I didn't have a flashlight, I couldn't see the path. So I'd constantly be walking off of it and getting a face full of thorns. And the thorns in Thailand, in the jungles, they're not like thorns like this, they're thorns like this. So you go into them and then they hook like this. And the more you pull, the harder they shred. And when they catch on your robes, they tear your robes to shreds. Just vicious. And each one is tipped with the worst kind of bacteria you can imagine, so that each one becomes infected. The jungles of Asia are not something you can, not to be laughed at, not to be taken lightly.
How long did it take to recover from that? That sounds awful.
Yeah, I was like a week later. It was about a week, I suppose. I mean, more than a week later, I was still finding these little tips of the thorns in my fingers and in my toes, and I mean, those weren't causing real problems, but they, oh, there's still one in there. I have to pull it out. But this scar here, I got a scar. You can't see it, but this stick. When I was climbing down into the ravine, I kind of slipped, or I didn't slip, but I turned and put my hand down to brace myself, and a stick went right almost through my hand. And like a week later in Chiang Mai, in Wat Lampung, I was staying, I looked at it and it was kind of hot, and then I pushed on it, and sure enough, this huge glop of infected matter came out. Very dangerous, but that went away. If you're vigilant with infections, they're not that bad. But if you let your guard down,
Do you support the ordination of bhikkhunis?
absolutely, absolutely, without much qualification. I mean, except for the qualification that the Buddha warned us. Have to be careful because it means that now you have two genders. I mean, maybe he was warning more because the culture at the time, some women would ordain to escape society because society was really hard on women. So again, it's about ordaining for the wrong reasons, perhaps. I don't know. But in today's climate, there's no difference. There's no perceivable difference in the West, especially, um, between men and women. Gender roles are blurred, to say the least. So I don't see the reason for not ordaining them, especially when the rules seem to allow it. And it's a bit complicated. I talked about this recently. Many of you have heard it already. There are two ways: either bhikkhus will ordain bhikkhunis, or bhikkhunis from another tradition will become Theravada bhikkhunis to ordain Theravada bhikkhunis.
They temporarily become Theravada bhikkhunis to ordain the Theravada
I don't
bhikkhunis.
know. That method I'm not in favor. less in favor of. It just seems too complicated and too open to criticism. Bhikkhus ordaining bhikkhunis is much preferable, until there are enough bhikkhunis, of course, to do it themselves, or to do the dual ordination. But even then, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Bhikkhus should be ordaining bhikkhunis.
How much do you think is enough a meditation for lay people?
How much what?
How much meditation is enough for lay people?
Till you become enlightened. I mean, there's no way to measure that. You are you, and you have to become enlightened. It's not about putting in hours and getting paid for them. It's about becoming enlightened. And that's just a task that you have to do. It's going to take probably lots and lots of hours and lots of time and dedication and trial and error and adjustments in your practice, finding teachers, taking meditation courses, going off into the forest, abstaining from this and that, giving up this and that. It will be insights and epiphanies and tears and blood and sweat.
Thorns.
Thorns.
Until what age is parental permission required? Did you say 20?
No, you always need your parents' permission, unless they're dead. If they're dead, you don't need their permission.
But even if you were older yourself, but your parents were still alive, they could say no?
They could say no.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The question regarding how much meditation for lay people, the person meant on a daily basis. So is there...
I think it still holds. I mean, it's not really, you have to understand what you're asking. Enough for what? Enough to brag about? Enough to make me happy? Really, real question is how much is enough to become enlightened? And that's not something you can easily answer. Obviously, if you're doing 12, 14 hours a day, that's better than doing 10 minutes a day. Faster. But everyone has their own path. If you're doing 0, that's probably not enough. That's my usual answer. 0 is not enough.
Bhante, I'm told that the schism between the Mahayana and Theravada practitioners is rooted in the expansion of Dhamma, supposedly passed down from the Devas taught by the Buddha. Whether or not these teachings are of the Buddha channeled Devas to some extent, and I am curious, have you or any monks of your tradition experienced a meditation that includes an interaction with Devas?
Simon's calling you out because you're not green. Did you meditate today? Let's look at Bex. See, we've got this neat thing where we can look at your profile and see you haven't done any meditation on our site.
Well, 2 people before were talking about how they just got home from work.
No, because you can click on their username and it shows the meditation log for the past week.
Well,
And this person's meditation log is empty.
okay. Well, a couple of our orange people just got home from work, so we have to...
That's cool.
We have to give them a break.
But I don't know. Should we answer the question?
Yes, because I'd like to know if that's one of the things you can talk about. Is that one of the things you can talk about?
Now that we've shamed them sufficiently, we can answer the question.
Are you talking with the angels?
Have you or monks in your tradition experienced a meditation that included an interaction with devas? Now, some people talk about it. From what I've heard, from the stories I've heard, it sounds most of it can be explained away by other causes. Although there are a couple of monks, one monk in particular, who told me a whole bunch of stuff that he saw, like angels and ghosts would come in and He once had an angel, I think it was, or a ghost, lie down on top of him and have sexual intercourse with him. But he may have just been crazy. I don't know, schizophrenic. But who knows? Maybe schizophrenics talk to angels. Maybe they can actually talk with them. There's more to the universe than we think. Physics doesn't explain everything because it can't touch the realm of the mind. The mind, everything that is outside of physics, anything that could possibly be outside of physics, couldn't even be detected by any instruments. It wouldn't register as energy. That's why you can't register the mind. You can't measure it.
Well, someone noted in your video the other night with the interview with David that something at one point in the video, something went by your head, and I think they thought it was an angel or something.
Yeah,
Some
it was a
sort of
car.
some sort of a spirit orb. You never know.
Pretty sure it was on the window. It was on the top of the window frame.
Like a reflection.
Yeah, on the edge of the window frame. And that's why it looked like it was going on an angle, because the window frame and yeah, it was probably yeah, who knows? Maybe it was an angel. There's an interesting book called The Book of the Damned. I've brought that up before. I recommend everyone read that if you're interested in the limits of science and the potential problems that scientists run into. The Book of the Damned. It's not a religious book, it's a scientific book to some extent. It's a cult classic. It was written over 100 years ago. It started a whole movement, apparently. Has anyone read The Book of the Damned?
I have.
Damned. It's a very interesting read. More questions?
We're all caught up on questions.
I think Mike's got a question we missed.
Did I? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike. Is it possible to become enlightened as a layperson?
Yes. But if you become an arahant, you either pass away or you become a monk. That's what the tradition says. You can't stay as a layperson as an arahant. You would die. I
So,
think I would speculate it has something to do with not getting food, not working, not having any interest in staying alive, but I'm not sure. Some people say it's just because it's too weighty. I think Nagasena in the Milinda Panha said it's just too weighty. The circumstances would not allow for it. The universe would not allow for it, so it would conspire to push you in one direction or the other. So strange things might happen that make you die or become a monk.
so historically in the texts, everyone who was known or thought to be enlightened went into the monastery within the 7 days.
Yes. Let's look at Mike. Is Mike orange as well? What's his meditation schedule like? Oh no, Mike has a little bit of meditation. 15 minutes. So just this is for those of you who aren't aware, for whom it isn't clear, this whole program that we have is designed around our meditation practice. So if you haven't read my booklet on how to meditate, that's where you should start. And once you've read that, the next step is to actually practice, and that's what this website, meditation.sirimangalo.org, is designed to facilitate. Come on here and meditate with us. Yeah, there's people practicing all around the clock, which is pretty awesome. If you look at these green bars on the page, you can see when people are most likely to be meditating in the past week. And obviously the most common is the hour before this program is on. Everybody comes together just before the program to clear our minds and get it prepared for this session. But yeah, it's all about the practice and our practice. I mean, it's a great tool for committing to practice and getting encouragement to practice. I think we got a good thing going here. It's just getting better. I mean, remember when it was only like 2 or 3 people, and now we've got a list of, there must be, this list is huge, 20 some people, no?
Yes, and when you first started this group has been together over a year now. When you first started, you had the 3 different times. Well, I think it started with 2 different times, one in the morning and one at night, and everyone would gather at those 2 times to
Right.
meditate. Then you put an afternoon session in, and from there it's kind of grown to around the clock, which is nice.
That's nice.
Is Buddhist News going to happen? How to submit articles?
Right. Okay. Let's talk. Tomorrow evening, the plan is to try something new. So we're gonna Buddha the news or Dhamma the news.
I tried to
So
talk Sanka into coming on and being on the panel there. He knows a lot of newsworthy things, but he had some excuse like it was 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. where he is, or 6 a.m. or something.
like excuse,
Just because he's in Sri Lanka and it's 5
excuse,
a.m. or 6 a.m. or something. No excuse.
no excuse. Actually, it's a pretty good excuse. So okay, submitting articles. We'll open up the Q&A box if we can. Otherwise, people can come on the Hangout, and all we have to do is this link up in the top, the URL up in the top. All we have to do is share that URL, and people can join the Hangout on air, I think. Let's try it now. See if someone can join. Someone needs to join as a test. Put the link in the chat box.
Where are you seeing the URL, Bante?
It's at the top of my browser page.
I don't. Maybe just yours.
Yeah, because yours, I guess, opens in a window without a URL bar. Can anyone click on that link and join us? You need the plugin and you need a Google Plus account. So far, no luck.
I think you don't necessarily need a Google Plus account anymore. Because we were able to invite some people who had email that wasn't Gmail. I think that's one of the things there. Google is a little bit dismantling their G Plus a little bit. They're not requiring so much interaction.
No, it looks like you still need to be invited to come on.
We'll put it this way: did anyone try, or is everyone being camera shy out there? Maybe no one clicked on it. If you tried and you couldn't get in.
Oh, there we are.
Ah, awesome.
Okay, so it works.
Awesome.
Because I didn't invite anybody, so we have a interloper, which is awesome. Someone who just...
I think, is that T Rose?
It is.
Welcome. Welcome. Bante, do you know the folks in Hamilton doing the mindfulness research? At this Buddhism conference recently, there was a comment about their work. So much interaction.
It looks like you still need to be invited. Oh, if you're in the Hangout, you have to turn off the YouTube video.
Did anyone try, or is everyone being camera shy out there? Maybe no one clicked on it.
We're here.
If you tried and you couldn't get in,
We're here.
Hi. Just
Hi.
mute your...
Turn off the YouTube video, please.
Yeah, mute or turn off the old one.
Got it. Oops.
Okay, awesome. You know why it took them so long to get in, Robin? Because they were watching the YouTube video, which is...
30-second delay. Yes.
Yes. Welcome, everyone.
So say hi.
Hello.
People we've never met,
Hi.
Rebecca and...
So this
Rebecca
is Rebecca.
is actually 2 people.
Rebecca
Hi.
and Da.
And
Oh, the Flash. Hi.
Wow.
all right, so this was a test to see if we could actually invite people, which is awesome. We can.
That worked well. That worked very well.
So tomorrow people can join, present their news article, tell us about it, because the deal is, if you give us a link, if you just give us a link to a news article, it may be that chances are I don't know much about the article, about the issue. Maybe Robin, are you at all into the news?
Sometimes. I do work at a newspaper, but sometimes I ignore things
Look
too.
at a newspaper. Well,
I
that's
do.
neat. So, Robin will help, but if you come on and explain the issue to us and what sort of question you have for us in regards to the article, why you think it'd be interesting, and what you want to hear our opinions on. And if you want to stay on and talk, that's fine too. If you want to stay on and give your opinion, we'll keep it kind of open and flowing. But then people can leave and join. And if you're not talking, if you're not like presenting an article or engaged in the panel, then you can leave and let someone else come in. I mean, I'm not thinking, probably won't have a full hangout because a lot of people don't want to get into it. But if it starts to get full, then we can just suggest that people leave if they're not participating, because they can watch via YouTube.
Well, that's cool. That's good to know. For
So
our
that's tomorrow, right?
yes, tomorrow's Monday. Yeah, that's great to know that you can just post a link too, and people can join an on-air hangout, because that will help so much with our volunteer meetings. There's been so much confusion on my end with just trying to set up invites for that. So, much easier way of doing things.
All right. So bring your news articles tomorrow.
Do you have any restrictions on what kind of news articles you want to discuss, or is it anything goes?
Anything goes.
Okay,
But
anything goes.
we will thumbs up good news. If you happen to find, I know it's difficult. If you happen to find an article that is good news, we'll be happy. If you find news that is bad news, we'll still be happy, but not because of your news article, because we're being mindful.
Sometimes I feel like I've missed the boat this lifetime. What is the best recommendation to increase odds to be a Buddhist monk in the next?
Well, it's not about becoming a Buddhist monk. It's never too late to practice, but it's about practice, not about ordination. I don't like to talk so much about ordination anymore because I find a lot of people are fixated on it and they overlook the practice aspect. The only reason you should be ordaining, and I mean, I'm a hypocrite. I mean, I had the worst track record ordination, worst story of ordination ever. Not the worst. There's a lot of bad stories out there, but yeah. Do what I say, do as I say, not as I do. You should only ordain when you're really proficient in meditation, when it's just gotten to the point where it's the natural next step, I think. So maybe that's pushing a little too hard. I don't mean it quite that you've already become enlightened, but you're just like intent upon the meditation, and the reason for ordaining is to meditate more. I've had people who weren't really interested in meditation, but still wanted to become monks, which not a good reason.
So if a person feels that their daily life is too busy, they're never finding time to meditate, that becoming a monk is not really gonna help that if you're not prioritizing it right now, or
Well, no, I mean, if you are meditating or trying to meditate and you feel like I should become a monk so I can meditate more, I think that's reasonable. But you make a good point that you should be able to do it as a layperson as well. So you start practicing intensively as a layperson, and like on the one hand, it was pretty clear that that's where I was headed. I was staying in a monastery, keeping 8 precepts. I was pretty dedicated, and always have been. I've never switched meditation schools, traditions, techniques, switched teachers, but since practicing, well, that's different. But Yeah, it's that I think that's a kind of essential. If someone is not clear which meditation technique they want to do, likes doing things like yoga and tai chi, and is concerned about nutrition and whatever, if you're not really set and say, I'm just going to go for it, you won't last. I've had people who ordain and then don't like going on alms round, and they feel awkward going on alms round, so they disrobe, or that they don't want to ordain because they've tried going on alms round with the monks, and it just feels like, why are we doing this kind of thing? I mean, if you don't get it, and if you don't get the meditation, if you don't get the whole big picture, maybe that's a little too harsh. I mean, people should be allowed to ordain. I don't want to restrict or so on, but because sometimes after you ordain, then you realize there is the case where people ordain for the wrong reasons and wind up realizing the right reasons after they ordain. That does happen. So probably shouldn't be so strict. But best recommendation is still practice meditation. Don't worry so much about ordaining, especially for, in this case, where you feel kind of discouraged that it's too late. It's not too late. Maybe too late to ordain, for sure. That happens. But it's never too late to start meditating. Meditating is right now, this moment. That's the breath of fresh air. We've got eternity to figure this all out. Problem is, we may soon lose track of Buddhism, and if we lose sight of Buddhism, Buddha's teaching, could be an eternity before we ever become enlightened. We may never become enlightened.
What are your thoughts about Maitreya and the Tusita heaven inner circle, since the pure Dhamma is disappearing rather quickly here?
No. It doesn't sound like a good question. Is it a good question, Robin? I don't want to talk about Dusi to heaven. Doesn't sound like a meditation question.
It's not a meditation
Did
question,
it start
no.
with what are your thoughts?
What are your thoughts
No, it's
about
too late for
Maitreya?
thoughts. Too late for
Too
thoughts.
late for thoughts. Okay, is this something you want to try tomorrow when the
No,
brain
not
is working
really.
better? Okay, sticking with practice questions.
Practice questions.
Bande, did you meet Balangoda Ananda Maitreya Taro?
No,
No.
I thought he's passed away.
So your teacher's
Resolving conflict with mindfulness. I'm just looking at this website. I think there's a Hamilton in Australia, and I think that's what you're thinking of.
oh,
I'm in Hamilton, Canada, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Pretty sure there's a Hamilton in Australia.
so your teacher's birthday is next week.
21st.
It'd be nice if we could all say happy birthday to him too.
Well, we could send him video, send him a DVD or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, someone's gonna let him know that we're started the monastery. He's very busy, and he'll be only. Well, they keep him secluded during his birthday because he ends up having to sit in a chair for like hours. I want to say 8 hours. It's probably more than that per day, just receiving gifts and giving blessings, and it's just intense, and thousands of people coming, lining up to see him for a moment and give him a gift, and they're bringing a lot of money, I think, and just incredible crowds, and then all that he's doing is he arranges to invite monks to give talks, and it's a huge. I mean, it's just a huge version of the standard Thai birthday. Um, Inviting monks to give talks and do chanting, and he invites hundreds and hundreds of monks to receive gifts. So the gifts that he's giving fill up a whole floor of this building, and it's just like, so one year it was like they give out several hundred refrigerators. Each monk had to cart a refrigerator home. Just It's a real circus. But I mean, not. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. It's an awesome time. I mean, maybe a little over the top, but
That sounds exhausting even if you're not 92.
right. So the point is, he is exhausted through it.
Mhm.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, I can see that.
Anyway, let's end there. Thank you all for tuning in. Tune in tomorrow night where we monk the news. So
Bring
we'll
your
have
news articles.
Buddhist news, a Buddhist take on the news. Okay.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you, Robin, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Have a good night.
Good night.